Hello, everybody. Welcome to the another episode of the Greatness Glory podcast. We are going to have another casual conversation about spirituality and other stuff. I have my good friend Kevin here again on the podcast. Hello, Kevin. And let me know what is the first question that you wanted to discuss on this talk.
Sure. Happy Monday. Thank you, Isaac, for having me again. And today, the topic of my choice would be healing, specifically Ayurvedic sciences and some of the knowledge you've shared with me over the past year or so about fasting, cleansing, spiritually and physically, and what you know about the different energy types and what that means for our diet and having a well balanced life.
Thank you for your question. First of all, let me start the talk by a disclaimer that I'm not a medical expert or any type of doctor. Please use this information with your own responsibility. The information is just my opinion and my understanding of what I have studied. This is not meant to be any type of medical diagnosis or prescription or anything like that. What is the first thing you have on your mind?
What is Ayurvedic science?
Well, Ayurveda is an integral part of all of this, for the lack of better word, Indian sciences that we have. One being yoga, the science of union with your higher self or evolution of consciousness. The other one is astrology, not the bullshit type of astrology that a lot of people think is astrology. It's a very, very advanced science. And one of the other sciences that we have is Ayurveda. So Veda means science and Ayur means life. So Ayurveda is the science of life. The basic principles of Ayurveda is that compared to, for example, allopathic medicine, instead of we trying to manipulate and control the body, we respect the enormous intelligence that body has built in, and we try to cooperate with the body, support the body to find its own rhythm and heal. So in Ayurveda, for example, very basic principle is different body types or body humors is called dosha, which is the basic characteristic or the nature of each individual. And these are mainly three types, but there is more subcategories of them. We basically call them pitta. Sometimes people translate it as acid because it has the characteristics of heat. And then we have vata, which is sometimes translated as wind or air because it's very moving and airy, and it's the energy responsible for all the movement in the body. And then lastly we have kapha, which is what gives the body mass, and anything related to lethargy, weight, body mass, bones and like that are related to kapha. So now Ayurveda works with many different types of healing, including herbs, lifestyle, especially diet, massages, taking advantages of different type of oil massages, doing things like reflexology and many other treatments in order to bring the balance back to the body of the person. And because we have different types of bodies, a treatment that might be helpful to somebody might be harmful to another person. Very simply put it, for a person with the aggravation of pitta or heat energy, for example, when you experience a lot of heat, a lot of tension, a lot of nervous tension, which can be also related to water, but even a lot of agitation, hot emotions, and so on. If this person consumes a lot of food which is heating, for example, like onion, garlic, spicy food, and so on, especially if this person already has some underlying condition, it can make it worse. So Ayurveda will prescribe different herbs for this type of person and different diet and lifestyle, including even what time is better to wake up and many other things as a method to bring the balance. And the basic principle is that if you create the perfect balance, and you see here again, we go back to balance, the body knows how to heal itself. I only know certain amount about Ayurvedic knowledge, and it's recommended if you have any health issues to consult with the Ayurvedic doctor. I just know these things as a part of my own holistic spiritual and healing studies. So this is just like a very, very basic, limited introduction to what Ayurveda does. And one last interesting point which I want to include is that we have in ancient India different Vedas or sciences. So there are many, many sciences that majority of people have no idea that they even exist, very advanced sciences. One of these Vedas, Ayurveda, and Vedas were written mostly by direct perception of the universe and nature. And people who wrote these texts were usually called rishis, because rishi means a seer. Why a seer? Because he or she has a very high ability to see, look at human body, look at even energy body, even subtlest dimensions of universe, and see how things work, and then download it and write it and provide it to humanity.
Thank you. And that was exactly my question. How come we don't hear so much about it? You know, I'm a healthcare professional, and oftentimes dealing with the elderly, the geriatric population, that's dealing with a lot of anxiety towards the end of life. They would ask about alternative methods of solving those issues, not like really seeking medical attention. And until I met you, I had no idea what it was. And going back to our previous podcast, when you were mentioning about the science of certain psychedelics, specifically ayahuasca, that the shamans somehow knew to go, you know, mix the root of this plant, boil it, and mix it with the bark of this other plant. And if these seers, the rishis, were that connected and we have access to these sciences, how come we don't hear more about it as millennia who's looking for something different?
Is all related to the collective consciousness. When the collective consciousness is mature enough to be more intelligent, to access and share more of the holistic knowledge, and people are more open-minded, and finally the governments are cooperative in sharing those sciences, not only prioritizing money and other political aspects and so on, it can be more accessible. The other reason is that we as human beings, especially in last few hundreds of years, somehow decided if we cannot see something very clearly under microscope and measure it, then it's probably not worth researching. But Ayurveda is a very scientific, evidence based, at the same time is also intuitive.
Energetic.
Yes, you can say that. But for example, when you go to an Ayurvedic doctor, he might read your pulse to diagnose what is going on with your body and when and where this disease was created and how you can address it to heal it. But this pulse reading is not the same pulse reading that people know about. It's a very, very complex process. Sometimes they say it might take a lifetime for a doctor to learn really how to read the pulse, to answer the right questions and prescribe the right medicine. So it has a lot of intuition, it has a lot of spirituality. And as we move more toward holistic understanding of the human being, sciences find space to be more public, including other holistic sciences. Chinese medicine is also very powerful system of medicine, and shamanic things are such also. Lastly, shamanic medicine is not scientific and evidence based, or let's say structured like Ayurveda or Chinese medicine TCM. It's more of intuition based, and it depends on the power and intuition of the shaman.
Thank you. When it comes to my experience in healthcare in United States, I've had the privilege of working with some integrative medicine physicians or providers. And unfortunately, even within the context of integrative medicine, I've noticed that the connection between the mind and the body is often missing. I even learned that in the field of psychology, they removed the word psychosomatic from DSM-5 a while ago, maybe back in the 70s or 80s, if I'm not mistaken. How is Ayurvedic science different, and how can it help people, for audience who may be looking for something alternative in terms of healing?
So you mentioned healing also, and we wanted to talk about some of the healing stuff. So let's dive a little bit deeper. And these concepts that I'm going to discuss, some of them are not material. So they are subjective sciences that needs to be learned and mastered by more of intuitive perception of the human nature. Maybe later we can prove a lot of them, but just to say, because we cannot measure them under microscope, then we need to dismiss them. It's a very wrong belief. So Ayurveda or a lot of other holistic and healing sciences, they don't believe that the body, the physical body, what you can measure under microscope or other devices, is the only aspect of you. So a lot of disease, actually, according to Ayurveda and many other sciences, are started and have roots in what they call energy body, etheric body. And this energy body, somehow you can say, it's very similar to what acupuncturists work on, the meridians, energy channels, but they're not physical. When we refer to these meridians or nadis in Sanskrit, we're talking about the paths that the energy, biomagnetic life force, different names that it's given to it, energy moves through the body. The biggest misunderstanding, and this is not scientific again, and some people might find this to be some sort of blind belief or something, but there is a lot of science to back it up if somebody is open-minded to study. But these modalities, they also work on different aspects of your being. These energy channels, the energy vortexes, sometimes also called chakras, because not every disease have roots in the physical body. A lot of the disease come from a karmic or energetic root that is manifested later in the physical body. A lot of disease started by your thinking and emotions and your attitude towards life and strong emotions such as hate, anger, and so on. So you can manage a lot with herbs and physical approaches to the healing. But sometimes, unless you address the root cause, either you cannot heal it, or you heal it temporarily and it comes back, sometimes in a different form, because the seed is in the subtle body. It's somewhere that not always the physical approach can heal it. So Ayurveda also has its own branch of kind of like psychology, as well as using different tools, let's say mantras, the energy formulations, so to speak, to address the root causes in different aspects of you. Also including things like, as I said, Ayurveda and astrology are very related, including reading your astrological chart and providing remedies based on what is your specific karmic genetic structure and how you can address those things. You see, if you go into the history, there are millions and billions of examples of patients being healed by some method that we cannot explain, whether it's some sort of faith, some sort of belief, some sort of magical healing method. And the person had a disease that's been going on maybe for a lifetime. And then suddenly, with some method, you see the disease is gone. That's all I can say in regards to that question right now. If you want, we can dive deeper more into other subtler aspects of it.
Could you use an example of a condition or an illness or disease, as you say it, that may manifest from the subtle body in the physical body that we may not necessarily understand as a psychological issue?
Yes, a lot of this disease that it's very hard to treat and the disease keeps coming back, it's usually a sign that it has a strong root in the subtle energy body. If I want to give an example, for example, the late Swami Satyananda Saraswati, who was one of the greatest yogis and gurus in India, who wrote hundreds of books on the subjects of these Indian sciences, he was giving an example that there was this woman who had migraine for almost her whole life, and the migraine wouldn't go away no matter what treatment she did. And Satyananda was a proponent of the yoga nidra, which is a very comprehensive method of relaxation as well as healing and a form of meditation. And you can say it can be kind of like a guided hypnotism, but that's really very limited way to look at it. But he guides this woman through a guided meditation, a sort of past life regression therapy that some people know about. This woman goes through this kind of hypnotic state of meditation, lying down, and then she realizes that in her past life, she was a mine worker as a man working in a mine, and this mine collapsed and some stone or something came down to his head, and then some sort of trauma and whatever that happened, and that disease was kind of psychosomatic, because according to the belief of these Indian sciences and almost all spiritual traditions and religions, there is reincarnation. And even though we don't remember our past lives, we take the impact of what we experience, energy and emotions of it, with ourselves through our subtle body to our next physical body. And as you grow up, you see a lot of those things, especially in the elder ages, are coming back. So it can be explained as genetics or something, but that's not the belief that these systems have.
Thank you. And I was going to say right now with modern science, they're actually saying our DNA contains like every bit and piece of information from the very beginning until now. Do you see the two overlap between modern science, Ayurvedic sciences, and also when we bring up healing, do you consider other modalities other than just the Ayurvedic sciences in the stuff that you teach in your book, The Art of Balance?
Yes. See, Ayurveda, in a way, it's not about the specific methods or this herb or that herb. It's an approach or a philosophy, a system to approach the body. So, in a way, you can say even the modern medicine tools can be applied to Ayurveda when the time is right. It's just like your view of the human body that is mostly about Ayurveda, and I might be wrong, but that's what I learned. So if you understand the human body as a whole, you can approach it with different methods. You can do energy healing, you can do different things, and so on. And one thing that I wanted to add is Ayurveda as a holistic science, it says that your current situation of the body, your state of the body, is a result of your past mind. This means that body, spiritually speaking, is a complete manifestation of thinking. So whatever thinking that you had, whether in early ages or in past life or something, formed this body, because spiritually Indian sciences believe that you create this body or your next body by your attitude and thinking and your karma. So your body is in a way creation of yourself. Again, we're getting into metaphysics where we say that you actually manifested this physical body by your karma, because that karmic body, one of the subtle bodies, is where you store your programmings, the software. And this software goes into a new womb, creates a new body based on that information, because like everything is in a way information when we speak about karma and past lives and mind. These information and tendencies create your next body, and that determines like in what type of body you're born. And then they add and say that if you want to know the future state of your body, look at your current state of mind. So a lot of intelligent, very smart Ayurvedic doctors can see that you're going to develop this disease because they look at you, they talk with you, and they see what kind of tendencies or habits or things you have right now that can manifest as a different type of body in future.
Thank you. And what do you say to people who say this is a bunch of mumbo jumbos? You're talking about past lives and energetic, subtle body or whatnot. And what have been your experiences? Because I do want to share my experience working with you. But before that, how did you come upon Ayurvedic sciences? How was your healing journey? And after you, I'd like to share a little bit about my experience for those who may be skeptical of these alternative modalities of healing.
We talked a lot about keeping your mind open in this whole greatness glory content that I offer to people. And it's the basic of knowledge to keep your mind open. And I'm not here to prove anything to anybody. I'm just here to share this knowledge for people who are interested. For people who deeply study and experience these things, it's a very obvious thing and it works for them. I personally love Ayurveda and holistic sciences because they work for me much better than just popping up a chemical synthetic pill and experiencing a lot of side effects and then other aspects. For now, you don't have to believe it, because if you just blindly believe it, then it's just a blind belief. So you can keep your mind open and study and experience and never think that I know everything, I know this is all nonsense, because then you will close the possibilities to yourself.
Thank you. And my experience with it, as you brought up being open minded. Coming from a healthcare background, obviously I was skeptical and dealing with chronic pain. I noticed my doctors only after about 6 months at UCLA told me, "Well, sir, you've been complaining about pain for more than 6 months, and clinically speaking, you're considered a chronic pain patient, and now you can graduate to a pain management clinic." And I was like, "What? That's it? Like, what are we going to do?" They're like, "Well, you're a chronic pain patient now and you can go to a pain clinic." And it's needless to mention what a nightmare that is, because a lot of people get hooked on opiate based medications. They end up getting depressed, addicted, unfortunately, to prescription medications. And unfortunately, that's modern medicine nowadays. And my experience with it was quite surprisingly around a breathing exercise that you've been working with me, that's been so beneficial, not only in terms of managing the pain, but focus, clarity. I'd like to say, as I've worked with you over the past year and I can do the breathing exercises for up to 12 minutes now, it just knocks me out. It's almost psychedelic, if I dare to say. And I never thought I would even share this or say this. And as you mentioned, I'm just at the beginning of these practices. I can only imagine how much more amazing and healing just breathing alone could be. And this is just one example, my personal journey. And if I were to ask you, have you seen other examples yourself or miracles that you've experienced within your community of students, family, yourself? I know you're not surprised by this, so please do share.
Yeah. So getting to the subject of using alternative methods of healing, there are thousands, maybe millions of examples that if you go into it and search for it, you can find people have experienced healing using anything from breathing practice or herbs or energy healing and acupuncture and so on. There was, I think, if I'm not wrong, it was President Nixon had this experience first time going to acupuncturist clinic, and he had a really bad backache, and then he experiences such a relief, and then he goes back and he creates agenda for actually supporting acupuncturists. That's what I heard. So you asking me if these alternative methods of healing have worked for me or others, I'm happy to share some of these experiences. I'm a bit hesitant because a lot of people think these things are just some hocus pocus, but I'm going to share it anyways. So I taught you this breathing practice, for example, and I've been doing this type of practice since very beginning of my journey. As I studied martial arts, and breathing is a very important part of martial arts, especially the Eastern Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Qigong type of martial arts, where you develop chi or energy in your body for healing and martial arts application. When I started these practices, it took me maybe 6 months to get to a point that I can powerfully experience it. And the experience is very, very real for me, where I can control my state of mind and energy to a certain extent to manipulate my energy, state of mind, and my vitality, raise my vibration, so to speak, calm myself down. Going back to the breathing practice, which I taught you, and I taught you about a simple part where you can actually use it for healing, where you direct the breath and that energy, which is the prana life force. So I remember one time I had a very bad injury in younger ages where I dislocated my shoulder and I got into a recurrent dislocation of the shoulder, very bad situation. And then I remember one time I had a horrible pain. I was actually traveling in a bus for about 10 hours between cities, and I was really suffering. And I remember clearly that sitting in the bus, having nothing else to do, I spent maybe 1, 2 hours just focusing on that area, that the pain wasn't going away for days, and bringing my energy. And when you bring your attention with the right practice and pushing the prana life force to that area, it starts taking the energy, blood, nutrition to that place and heals it. And I was actually surprised that the pain went away completely for days, and it helped me heal a lot. Now, getting into more interesting aspects of healing through energy, which you can talk about things like Reiki and healing modalities. Energy healing has been one of the subjects that I have studied and experienced and taught to people a lot over a period of 10 years. I had a forum with 4,000 members that I taught a lot of these systems, from the most basic to very advanced systems, to people. And this created this opportunity for me to not only see what works really in action, but also to hear a lot of feedback from people. And I don't do healings anymore. I am completely dedicated to healing people's soul and mind rather than working on healing some element. But talking about those energy healing modalities, there were a lot of people that I treated. And when I say I treated, I didn't do anything. I just channeled that energy and used that method, because in Reiki and energy healing, we don't believe in being healer. And that's a very big mistake that a lot of people make. And they develop even an ego. They think they're a healer, but no, we are nothing. We're just like an empty, hollow tube that the energy passes through us, whether it's a Reiki healing or just channeling the energy from nature and earth or whatever. And there was a lot of people that had chronic disease, even cancer, fibroids, migraines, and things like that, that were completely cured. And I have done this on my close circle of friends. They have reported things that they couldn't explain. And I have experienced a lot of it for myself. As a matter of fact, it's been one of the most powerful tools that have helped me to maintain a lot of my physical and mental balance. So those energy systems, they come from very ancient times. They're very powerful systems of healing. But unfortunately, since we got into the topic of Reiki, Reiki is heavily ruined. And I say this very confidently. I know a lot of people will dislike this. Reiki and similar systems of energy healing are heavily messed up. Most people don't have an understanding of it. They don't use it right. They don't use it with the right attitude. You go to a weekend class in 2 days, they certify you as a Reiki master, and then you go put your certificate in the wall, say, I'm a Reiki master, and now I'm a healer, and it's okay. But I'm just going to say, this whole certification, even some of these websites these days, I see that you go and just enroll in an online course. And as soon as you enroll, they send you a certificate and say, you're certified now. But certification was supposed to show some level of proficiency and accomplishment. Just like when we discussed that a shaman that wanted to be a real shaman would go at least 12 years in the forest and going through a lot of pain and experiences to achieve that level of mastery. So it's a really destructive thing to say, I took a weekend course and I am a certified healer now. And a lot of us healers and even a lot of therapists and so on, we really need to focus on healing ourselves first, then healing others. And this Reiki and stuff, I have 10 hours that I can talk about it. And it's a very powerful healing method. It's great. But majority of people have not understood the real principles of it and don't use it properly. And a lot of time healers also create issues for themselves because they don't know what they're dealing with. Because when you involve yourself with the karma and negative energies of other people, if you don't know how to handle it, if you're not intuitive enough, those energies can actually sometimes backfire into you. So I will suffice to this.
Thank you. And could you talk to us about the correlation, if any, between yoga, science of yoga, meditation, breathing, and Ayurvedic sciences? Because you brought up people going online getting certified as healers. And I know for a fact there is a tradition and a lineage that's involved with these sciences to keep them pure, and that you have to be initiated. What is initiation? And what is the correlation between the science of yoga, meditation, modalities such as Ayurvedic sciences?
Thank you. Very good question. Starting from yoga. Yoga, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful methods of healing because it directly works with manipulating or harmonizing, maybe it's a better word, your energies, your mind, and your body. So we are going to need two more episodes, one for talking about yoga therapy and then about initiation. But let's just answer it in a very compact way. Starting from breathing. Breathing is a link between the body and universal energy, prana or chi or ki or whatever. And when you learn to work with the breath, you learn to control, direct, and channel the universal energy. So you can create, if you are really, really advanced in breathing, you can heal probably 99% of the ailments just with the breathing. And then yoga has very, very powerful yogic postures that have various effects on the body. There are books written on it, which asana or yogic posture is suitable for what condition. And then there are different types of practices of concentration and meditation that you can use to address different types of things. For example, we were talking about different type of bodies and different conditions in Ayurveda, like heat, like overheating in a way. And then for a person like that, yoga wouldn't suggest that this person goes and runs 1 hour every day under the sun. It would suggest some calming meditation and breathing practices to bring that balance back. And then the breathing practices help with recharging your life force, your batteries, because this is another aspect of holistic sciences where in all ancient cultures, it's endless. If you go and study, it's everywhere. Life force, prana, is a key concept. It's only in materialistic nature of this age that we have completely ignored that what keeps us alive is not just food or water or even oxygen. It's the life force. There are many stories in ancient India to demonstrate this. One of them being that one day the different forces were arguing in the body, and this organ, this function was saying I am better, the other one saying no, if I leave everybody is dead. The breath said if I leave you won't leave, and so on. Then the prana or the energy left and everybody came back and begged him to come back, or her. And this is an interesting story that demonstrates this. And they say you can live without food for weeks, without water for days, without oxygen for a few minutes, and without life force you cannot even live for 1 second, because it's like the electricity of the body. And when you practice for yourself and become advanced enough, you can see the energy moving through your body. All those things about meridians and whatever else you see, unless you experience this, it's hard to explain. You will be amazed that when you learn a simple practice and you become experienced in it, something like a mudra, for example, this one that everybody does and they think it's like high class thing. With a mudra in 30 seconds, you might be able to change your energy and mood. And when you look at it materialistically, say, how is that possible? It's not a sort of blind belief to say, yeah, because I do this, now I condition myself to feel good. You will feel the energy moving toward your body. It's a very simple thing. You can feel the energy through different channels of your body when you become more sensitive. That's why I talked about intuition in my book, developing this intuition to feel what's going on, because you can go only so much by the book. Then let me talk about the initiation as well, since you brought it up. So
Yes.
initiation is a very complex subject, and only a few people in many have understanding of this. Initiation in yogic, tantric, shamanic terms, and even in many other traditions, is a opening of the energy and receiving energetic support for your practices. Without initiation, it's so important that nobody teaches you any real yoga in real traditions. because that initiation is the supporting energy of your practice. That practice, sitting like this, breathing like this, might be very small part of it compared to the initiation. Let's say example of a mantra initiation. First of all, when we say mantra, we're not talking about affirmation or some English sentence. We're talking about very, very unique, specific energy formulas, set of reverberations, a set of vibration of sound that is arranged in a specific way that creates a specific result. So when you go to a real guru and you want to start doing a practice of a mantra, for example, which is a very, very powerful, one of the most powerful practices that can do anything if you do it right under the guidance of right master. So this guru gives you an initiation into that mantra, believing that in those systems you receive a certain amount of that energy. Consider it like you are deficient in certain minerals or vitamins, and to help you start your practice, jumpstart your process, the guru will transfer some of his own energy of the mantra that he has developed over the years to you, so you can get good results. So they say if you were to pick up a mantra from a book and start chanting it, you still get result, but the result is hundreds of times less powerful and effective than when you receive a mantra initiation. So that's a very brief explanation on what initiation means. In yoga and tantra, they call it diksha.
Thank you, Isaac. And I want to take a step back for a second, because in 2025, when you bring up the word energy, some people may feel like, oh, this is like a conspiracy theory. Whereas, you see people on the daily basis going to Starbucks for a cup of coffee, or smoking a cigarette, like using different types of stimulants, even prescription drugs, in order to manage their energy. But once we speak about, subtle body energy or other types of energy that cannot be measured, which Alan Watts actually used to also speak about, people lose you. People they freeze. Why do you think that is? Why do you think in the age of AI, when you bring up energies that are not seen or documented the traditional way by the scientific method in a medical school, that's mostly teaching how to manage symptoms as opposed to heal or to treat the individual, people lose you the minute you use the word energy.
We kind of referred to this in a few minutes ago, where we said it's related to the collective consciousness and so on. But I want to say, actually, for a person who wants to reject everything that is not within the framework of his or her understanding, no science, no knowledge, reason is enough, really. There are people like that, that they firmly believe they are right. So we cannot do anything about that. But for people who are open-minded, not only there are millions of books, teachings on these concepts of the subtle energies, but even a lot of the modern science, so to speak, quantum physics and so on, talked about this. As a matter of fact, at one point, I really wanted to create a whole long manual of different type of evidence that exists for paranormal things, ESP, extra sensory perception, and so on. There are a lot of things about it if you really go and study with open mind. There is more than enough. You know, for example, this machine that they made, that it can measure your brain activity and thoughts in a way without even touching your brain, in a wireless way. They can already measure the frequency of your thoughts, where they say that they did an experiment. I heard, I think it was in New York, that they gathered large number of meditators, and they said, let's meditate every day for a month and see if it affects the collective consciousness. And then they learned that the crime rate went really down after they did that. Whether that can be proven or not is not the thing here. But there are a lot of things. I think it was this guy, if I'm not wrong with his name, Russell Targ. You can find him on YouTube. He talks a lot about different ESP things, different energy things that even CIA used to work on. There was an experiment, and there are even more experiments that there's in back of my mind. If I can remember, I'll tell you. For example, they did some experiment on telepathy to see if it's really true or not. And then they put people in different rooms completely, and then they measured a lot of things. And then there were some people who were able to demonstrate this ability. Some person would look at a card or read a number or doing something like that, and the other person would write it down. There's been a lot of it, and I think it's in the Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol that he also talks a lot of things like this, if I'm not wrong. But that book is anyways an amazing book.
Thank you, Isaac. And cleansing, going back up to my question earlier, is one of those practices that really truly showed me and proved to me that the energy we feel inside is true and valid, and it's not just external things like I'm waking up and I need a cup of coffee, or I'm tired, I need this or that. Can you speak a little bit about cleansing, whether it's a spiritual, physical, and its role when it comes to maybe Ayurvedic sciences, spirituality? Because I want to say, understanding how important your environment and cleansing is, that's when the big shift happened with me. And that's a lot of that is also thanks to your book and your one-on-one work with me, which I appreciate.
Thank you. So let's look at cleansing this way. What is it that we want to clean? Physically speaking, we're talking either about toxins or pathogens. In Ayurveda, they call it ama, which is toxin. And when these toxins accumulate, they create disease by a physical cause. But when mental, emotional toxins accumulate as some sort of energy blockage in your energy channels or your aura or whatever else that you can name, they also create disease which manifest with a delay. So for 20, 30 years, you keep being depressed, or you keep developing hate or anger or whatever. Slowly it turns to disease and different issues. And energetically speaking, you're speaking about environment. Environment also is energy. Everything is energy in the universe. That's basic physics. So my body is energy, this chair is energy, another person is energy, the herbs are energy. It's basically about managing your energy so it goes back to the state of balance where you can experience the wellness. So your environment obviously affects you. Even in the book Art of Balance, in the beginning, I wrote about the different dimensions of a human being, which is a very important concept for anybody who is into these things to understand, that we have different dimensions. Our thoughts affects us, our food affects us, our environment affects us, and so on. So energetically speaking, environment also can create some negativity. That's why there are sciences like feng shui, which talks about how to create a harmonious environment energetically in your place of living or work. Or even before that, the science of vastu, which is a very comprehensive science. Again, one of those Indian sciences, one of many, that talks about how to create a place for living that is in harmony with nature and create the most amount of healing and the right type of energy in the different places of your home, for example. The type of energy that you want to be in your kitchen, you don't want it to be in your bedroom, or so on. Bedroom is a place that you rest, and there is more lethargic energy, what we call in Ayurveda also kapha or tamas, also is the energy of lethargy, rest, and kind of like that. So you don't want that energy into your garage where you want to go do a workshop or something. So you create different energies based on different functions that you want to have. And these ancient Indian sciences, they have gone almost over everything, and it's a big claim to say, but that's my understanding of it. I think that's why when Mark Twain went to India, he said that anything that could be made by man or God, they have already done it. It's just because of the current situation of the world and the way that knowledge is distributed through the school or the systems, that it's being restricted to become public.
Awesome. Thank you. And my final question, where do you see the collective consciousness going? As obviously podcasts like this are happening, whereas a lot of healers traditionally were prosecuted over centuries, whether they were accused of doing witchcraft and burned at the stake, or prosecuted for bringing up alternative strategies around healing that was threatening to certain people. Where do you see the collective moving? Are we at the beginning of a renaissance, or do you feel humanity even going further into darkness?
I feel definitely the collective consciousness and the overall vibration of the earth is rising, definitely. This has been predicted in many traditions all over the world, in a way, including in the Bible, that the speed of acquiring knowledge in human race will significantly go up, and you see a lot of it is happening by AI now. And as we become more conscious and evolve, the other aspects of a human being that we have completely closed our eyes towards it, whether it's soul or energy or whatever else, is bound to become more common, a more common understanding for people. And that is one of the key characteristics of the evolution, and becoming more conscious and understanding the human being as a whole. As you know, in the yogic astrology or Vedic astrology, there is the concept of the four ages, where they believe the earth goes through millions of years of evolution, and each age demonstrate a specific level of consciousness. We had like the Kali Yuga, which was the winter of the history, where the consciousness was lower. There were a lot of stupidity and wars and people being prosecuted for spirituality and healing and so on. And then we are going to a kind of new age where the knowledge is so spread worldwide that no more truth can be suppressed. Buddha said that three things cannot remain hidden forever: moon, sun, and the truth. So I also believe in that. It's going to come out. People are growing much more consciously. I see that every day. People are becoming more open minded. So I think we are living in a good age, Kevin. Anyways, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for all the great questions that you asked. And if you don't have anything to add, we can end this session.
Thank you. And my final words are, as Yeshua put it, ascended master Yeshua, the truth shall set you free. So the truth shall not remain hidden, for sure.
Yes. Thank you.